Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the Bundesliga show, Fantasy Football Match Week 10 edition. Tuning in live with my good friend Rune this morning. How are you, good sir?
I'm good, thanks. Looking forward to the weekend as always. One last match day before the international break, so it's all about enjoying it. And at least we don't have to worry about making transfers next week. So just looking at this weekend alone, which helps a lot fantasy-wise.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, very true. Another international break is almost upon us. For this weekend, it's about focusing in on those on those starters, beating the European rotation race, and seeing obviously who is going to start, who's going to get us those points before we go into another international break. And the last international break that we'll have obviously this year up until it's usually around March again, isn't it, that we get another international break? I suppose we get the winter break, don't we, from the Bundesliga perspective as well. But anyway, welcome. Good morning, everyone, to the show. Hope you're all doing well. Obviously, if you can leave a like on this video, comment along. A couple of people already signing in to say good morning. So good morning to you, Stephen. Good morning, Bruce, and everyone else that's watching. Make sure you sub to the channel, of course. Check out Doobie-Doobie-Doos. Bulinews on, all socials and, of course, the website to check out all those fantastic fantasy articles, previews, reviews, long reads, and the rest. Plenty of exclusives on bulinews.com, Bulinews as well. Plenty to get stuck into. So we'll kind of just crack straight on with defenders. In my delightful rushedness this morning, haven't got the banner set up. So Rune, I'll hand over you to start doing your defenders, and I'll pop them in a few seconds time so everyone can see them. If you crack on with your defender picks, and I will start getting the banners ready as we move through.
Yeah, I'll start with Arthur from Leverkusen as my budget pick. Leverkusen have a very appealing home game against Heidenheim. So I think they're one of the teams to target this week. Arthur costs just around 5 million. And with Lucas Vazquez out injured, he's been playing a lot in recent weeks at the right wing back position. So he's playing pretty far up the pitch as well. I noticed he got a solid 150-point return against Bayern last time, despite the fact that Leverkusen didn't have much possession, and we're quite dominated in that game. But now they're playing Heidenheim, and I think that price should provide quite good value, and his ownership is 0% at the moment, so a true differential as well as we speak. And my mid-price pick is Maximilian Mittelstädt. Not really a mid-price player, but nevertheless, just threw him in there because Stuttgart have a very appealing home game against Augsburg, who are in a lot of trouble. And if you look at Stuttgart's games against struggling teams back in October, they played Wolfsburg and Heidenheim. Mittelstädt got more than 300 points in each of them. And I think this matchup is comparable to those in the sense that Stuttgart are up against a struggling team, expected to dominate a lot, be on the ball a lot. And Mittelstädt is usually quite involved offensively for them. And that's the question, will he get rotated out after they played in Europe? Rory and I were just talking about that before we started recording, but I don't think he will. Most likely, I think Hendricks, who's like the main alternative at the left back position, will be needed in central defense, I think. So that should increase Mittelstedt's chances of starting. So I'm quite confident he'll start, and it's a great game, and for him at home, I think. Obviously, the main man this week is Grimaldo. I think a lot of managers sold him for the game against Bayern. I did that myself. I was quite pleased to see he was on the bench and didn't play there. But I always knew that I'd probably want him back this week against Heidenheim at home. He's just as close to a must-have as you get, given the attacking threat he poses and looking at the match at home. From Leverkusen's perspective, he's just an incredible option this week, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Those three players that you picked out there stands to reason that that's going to be a really important play for a Leverkusen fixture that looks really appealing. Obviously, Stuttgart at the moment. Obviously we covered it yesterday, the match reaction and watching it all the way through. Maxi played a pretty full game, obviously until the latter end of the second half, where he's taken out. He was on the yellow card, so it kind of made sense to do that. In terms of the game on Sunday, I think you're right, Rune. I think he will start. There's always that risk, but I think he probably does start. With everything considered, the international break that's coming up, Sebastian Hoeneß will want to go as strong as possible. I'm sure he will make changes, but I think that's something that maybe comes into his head, whether he kind of tweaks the formation a little bit as well. And we maybe see those kind of three centre-backs again, rather than the more traditional 4-4-2. Well, four at the back at least that we're playing last night. I think he probably does make a start. Just seeing that Lawrence has checked in, has asked a couple of questions, as you might not be able to watch the whole show. I think his questions are in respect to strikers, so we'll come back to you later on in the show for that one, Lawrence. And thank you for your kind words as well. So defender-wise, I don't think there's any questions. I haven't checked on socials. I don't think there are any questions on there either. So any other honourable mentions defenders-wise, Rune, before we move on to midfield picks?
I still think Kevin Dix is a good option for the price. I think he's still just about 3 million, and obviously Gladbach got a great result last time against St. Pauli, so they should have a lot of confidence, and they're playing the derby against Köln, which should be interesting. But as we've talked about before, Dix will probably take the penalty if they get one. Just all around, I think a solid option for the price. I also like Schmidt from Werder, who are playing tonight against Wolfsburg. I think looks likely to start as a left back this week. It's quite good differential, I think, in a game that looks appealing from a Werder point of view, given how Wolfsburg have struggled lately. Paul Simon is under a lot of pressure and just doesn't seem like a cohesive team at the moment. So surely that's a game you would back Werder to win at the moment.
Yeah, that was my thinking. Although when we did predictions last night as well, Mark was of the opinion that Wolfsburg might nick it. So you never know, but I didn't agree with him on that one. Question here from Laurent as well. So thank you for this one. Vuskovic or Muheim on a hold, thinking of selling one. Obviously, HSV take on Dortmund in a very appealing match in terms of the appeal of watching those two teams. But obviously a tricky game, Rune, for Hamburg. Obviously just conceded 4 goals to newly promoted with them, Köln. Dortmund obviously lost to City 4-1 as well, but have been pretty good going otherwise, for all the other games that they've played, although a very poor game last Friday against Augsburg. Hold or get rid of at least one?
Definitely get rid of at least one of them. I'd sell Muheim Because if you look at the game and how you expect it to be, I think Dortmund will likely be in possession a lot, and HSV will probably defend a lot. So yeah, sure, Muheim could get some points from winning duels, but part of what makes him attractive fantasy-wise is his attacking involvement as well, ability to swing in crosses and contribute in that sense too. And I don't think he'll be able to get a lot of points in that regard here. Vuskovic could still do well. I think he's quite expensive. If you consider the difficulty of the matchup from HSV's perspective, but he gets a lot of points from winning duels. He's probably going to go up against Girassi a lot. Depends on how that key duel will go. I think Girassi has looked a bit not at his best lately. A bit like not very motivated. So depends on which player that shows up from Dortmund up front. If it's a goal machine or if it's a player that's looking a bit out of form. I think Vuskovic, not a bad hold. Still expect him to get a decent amount of points from winning duels, but Muheim, I'll probably get rid of him.
Yeah, Vuskovic currently standing at 12.05 mil. So yeah, yeah, obviously in terms of selling him as well. It would generate funds though if you wanted to get rid of him, I suppose. So yeah, thank you for that one, Lawrence. We'll move on then. Move on to our midfielder picks for this week. So Rune, back over to yourself for your budget, mid-price, and premium.
Yeah. Okay. So my budget pick is Ibrahim Massa from Leverkusen, and it's a pick I really like personally this week. I think he had a very good game in the Champions League the other night. Was very good in possession, and he was named man of the match. So yeah, quite impressive from him there, and I think, considering that he just delivered that performance, it would make sense to keep him in the starting lineup. There's a rotation risk, a slight one, but Poku, for example, picked up a knock against Benfica. We don't know yet how bad it is, but I think it would make more sense to give him a break if he's still struggling a bit with that knock. And also Massa, I mean, he could potentially play in central midfield too if needed. That's what he's done at times. They have a lot of injury problems there. Of course, they have Andrik back now, but he's a bit more flexible. So I think at that price, I expect him to start in attacking midfield currently. We'll see what Ullman says later, but I think at that price, especially if he plays in an attacking role at home against Heidenheim, I think he's definitely worth taking a punt on. And if you're a bit unsure whether he starts or not, you could potentially just go with 4 midfielders, for example, and have him as your 5th pick, just in case he plays. If he does start, he certainly has a lot of potential. But of course, you could also just go with a certain starter if you have a little more to spend. And then you probably pick Alex Garcia, who's my mid-price pick. At the moment, he's just really central key player for Leverkusen. He's been that ever since Xhaka left. He's taking on more responsibility and sort of he does some of the stuff on the pitch that Xhaka used to do. He's very solid in his passing game and excels in build-up play. And that's where I think he should get a lot of points this week as well, because Leverkusen will most likely be on a lot of possession, trying to open up the Heidenheim defense. And that means Garcia should make a lot of passes and get plenty of points in that area. And then finally, my premium pick, who's not that expensive anyway, is Jens Dage from Werder, my fellow Dane, who is owned by just 3% at the moment. He was Werder's top scorer last season, and he scored a few goals lately after coming back from injury. And as I mentioned earlier, I back Werder to to get a result at home against Wolfsburg. At least they should get on the score sheet, given the form Wolfsburg are in at the moment, the problems they had at the back, some of the goals they conceded against Hoffenheim last week, for example, tells me that something is a bit wrong at the back, and Werder could take advantage of that. And I think Stay, along with Romano Schmid, both good options in that same price bracket. But this time I just wanted to mention Stay because I think his ownership is a bit lower, and he seems to be in form and getting in those goal-scoring positions again.
Yeah, I think that's one trait that is definitely worth mentioning with Steg, is that he does find those goal-scoring positions quite well. Just one of those players that has a really good knack for it. So yeah, chances are if Werder are going to be on the front foot, he will be central to that and pick up some good opportunities. And some more Leverkusen picks absolutely makes sense there. So again, I don't think we've got any questions in regards to midfield. So again, we'll kind of just pose the question ourselves, Rune, on any more kind of honourable mentions from a midfield point of view as well.
Yeah, I think Mansambi from Freiburg is a player that seems to be doing quite well generally.
Yep.
Because of he's playing as a number 8 and quite involved attacking wise, but also winning duels and winning the ball and dropping back. So yeah, that's the kind of player we really like fantasy wise. So I think he's a good option, and of course then we have the usual suspects. Doan maybe at home for Frankfurt against Mainz. Frankfurt are not looking at their best at the moment, but I think Mainz have had some problems this season after European games. Maybe their squad isn't like completely good enough to focus on both competitions. Seems like at least that the European games are taking their toll on the Mainz squad, and Frankfurt will surely look to get back to winning ways. So he's always a good option, even if he hasn't looked at his best lately, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Anything from a Stuttgart point of view, or is it too unpredictable because of that European rotation that, well, obviously we've already highlighted a bit? Obviously the clutch man himself, El Kanous, came in big style, but he and a few others may be likely to be moved or shifted around. Obviously we had Wagnerman starting in more an advanced role on the left-hand side last night. Didn't feel that overly worked for me. So Labeling came on at half-time. He could get a start and he played well. So anyone kind of on the tip of your tongue in that sense?
It would be El Kanous. But what do you think, Roy? Do you think he'll start again? That's my main concern, because I feel like he's one of the players that could potentially get a break. I'm not 100% sure, but also I'm not completely convinced he'll start, and he is quite expensive. I
think for the risk that he gets rotated out is too high right now, given head coaches have their own right to rotate, especially when they're in Europe in 3 competitions like Stuttgart are, with heavy workloads to come. And the amounts that Hoeneß has rotated, we've seen big changes from him. He made 8 or 9 changes between that Pokal match against Mainz, the doubleheader. He's got every right to do it because it seems to be working a lot of the time. So, yeah, I'd like to throw out that as a potentially good-looking fixture, but also, for El Kanous, still quite high that he may have to play a part from the bench on like 60 minutes onwards, maybe, if things aren't quite going to plan, I reckon. So, definitely worth mentioning El Kanous, but also he's a bit of a risk. So we'll move on then to strikers and get them on screen for you all. And some, big strikers on your list this week, Rune, all priced out quite nicely as well in terms of their spread. So yeah, talk us through your budget, mid-price, and premium.
Yeah, budget pick this week is Patrick Schick, whose price has fallen down to just around 9 million, which is that's a decent price for a striker like Patrick Schick, especially if he's starting at home against Heidenheim. But does he start though? That's the question. I do think he will, because he's worked his way back from injury. Kofane started against Benfica, but Schick came on and he scored after that. So if he's ready to play from the start, I think that would make a lot of sense. Considering that he's just coming off a match-winning performance against Benfica. So I think I'll take the risk personally at the moment, but let's see what Hjulmand says later. At that price, and given the favorable matchup Leverkusen have at home, he's definitely a player on my list. And then moving on to another sort of gamble, Victor Boniface from Werder. Hasn't really excelled yet at Werder. He got, I think, 200 points on match day 8. That's the only really notable performance so far, fantasy-wise, from him. Last week was quite poor. But if he starts against Wolfsburg, which we will see, if he will, we'll see the starting lineup tonight, he may be worth taking a punt on. I think we all know what Boniface is capable of. As we've already talked about, Wolfsburg are in poor form, struggling at the back. So, yeah, a possible differential this week in the mid-price category. And then finally, mentioning Guirassy again as my premium pick. He got back on the score sheet against Augsburg last week and got 250 points. So that was quite solid, and those who brought him in were rewarded for that. Especially, which was important given that Kane was rested, for example, to have someone up front who actually delivered. But I think that was a tough one for everyone. I think Kane getting rested. Anyway, I wasn't impressed by Guirassy against Man City by any means. Seemed a little off and was taken off fairly early. But then again, really difficult fixture away from home. Dortmund weren't in possession that much. He wasn't that involved. Now they're playing HSV, completely different game, the sort of game that we've seen Guirassy score several goals in previously. So on paper, at least, looks like a really good game for him. Depends on whether you expect him to show a reaction to the Man City game and get on the score sheet again in the Bundesliga. HSV just conceded 4 goals against Köln last week. If Dortmund score an early one, could be a long evening for them, a long afternoon for them against BVB. So definitely worth mentioning, especially now that his ownership is just 18%.
Yeah, absolutely. I was one of those who brought in Guirassy last week, and he gets the goal, takes his chance in a very drab affair on Friday night in Augsburg, though. Wasn't much else for him to work with. I do agree he hasn't been there really all season, but there's been injury concerns. But his whole demeanor, and I know Guirassy's a player that doesn't always look super happy on the pitch. I know that from his time at Stuttgart. He's a very serious looking chap. Gets quite grumpy when he's constantly fouled and all that sort of stuff. But he does seem to be just kind of drifting through games at the moment, and whether that's just because he's still not quite there from an injury point of view, I don't know if there's anything else going on. I don't think there would be. Obviously, there's disappointment for his own point of view of from an international perspective, that Guinea aren't now able to qualify for the World Cup, I think. So that's something that he's had to deal with recently, I guess. But he's a professional. He kind of cracks on. So it's still a great shout against highest foul side there, conceded goals and are able to do that again. I'm sure it's something for players to look at. So I know, Lawrence, you asked a question a little bit earlier, so we'll bring this one up, and that is around a cheap third striker, Tabakovic or Diamande or Poku wanted to take a punt on Schick. If possible, is that too risky? Hopefully we've answered the Schick part of that question, Lawrence, for you, in around his good chances of starting. Three very interesting players that he's picked out there, Rune, all with their own benefits. Maybe aside from Poku, which you mentioned is maybe more of an injury risk. Diamand and Tabakovic had excellent run outs in match week 9. So are they interesting players as well?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously Poku, if we get the impression that he'll be fit to start, he's a very interesting option as well. Only downside is that he's a striker in the game. Unfortunately not a midfielder, but nevertheless he's been really decisive for Leverkusen. So let's see if he gets the all clear, because then he's an interesting option. And with the other two, both very informed players coming off great performances last week. Tabakovic needed that experience, I think. He's been getting a lot of stick from the Gladbach fans early on, but really decisive performance from him last time, and he's actually playing as a striker, which is something I like. Whereas Diamande is a bit more of a winger, but also in great form, of course. And I think Hoffenheim Leipzig could be an interesting affair. Expect both teams to score. So he should have I think he probably has a higher floor than Tabakovic, but Tabakovic is probably a bit more likely to get on the score sheet because the way Gladbach play, it's very much constructed to set him up for goals, swinging crosses for him to deliver headers and get those finishes in the box. So all three of them, if Poku is pass fit, I think good options in the differential budget category.
Yeah, I mean, Tabakovic is set up in the same system that obviously benefited Tim Kleindienst so fabulously. So exactly what you say around that kind of central striker. He played a cracker against St. Pauli. That's absolutely fair to pick out. Lovely stuff. Hope that helps, Lawrence, at least. Quick one in here from CFC Storm. Sell Kotu or Bensebaini. They're Rune, two obviously BVB defenders, obviously up against highest foul. Maybe get the impression that Kotu is probably the player that's more that has been maybe rotated a bit more than Bensebaini. And we know Bensebaini's threats going forwards, but is that kind of diminished when he plays in that kind of back three as opposed to playing a wing back?
I think so. He's not as offensively involved in that role, but he is on penalties, which is always a big boost. Scored one against Copenhagen in the Champions League fairly recently. So that's a big boost. And also he's getting a lot of points both from making passes and winning duels, even if he isn't playing in a very advanced role. And I think Dortmund will be a lot in possession in that game. So I trust him a lot to get a decent return. Whereas Guto, bit more of a gamble, also a lot cheaper to be fair. But always a bit of a coin toss if he starts or Ryerson starts. Ryerson played against Man City, so that maybe speaks for Kuto getting the nod this time. Also the sort of game where playing him makes sense, given that Dortmund will likely dominate it. But nevertheless, if I had to pick between those two, I'd keep Bensebaini for sure.
Yeah, I'm in agreement on that one. Lovely stuff then. We've worked our way through. Obviously, if there don't think there's going to be any more questions coming in right now. So perfect place to end it. So thank you everyone for tuning in with us this morning. Yeah, good luck ahead of the match week 10 weekend of the Bundesliga and your fantasy assets, of course. And yeah, we'll obviously be back to action with another draft after the international break. So look forward to that. So just want to finish up by saying, obviously, if you can do, leave us a like. If you've not been able to tune in this morning live, by all means, please do leave comments in the comment section. We will pick up and reply to them before the deadline, obviously this evening, Friday night. Make sure you sub to the channel as well. And keep on helping us build this awesome Bundesliga community here on the Bundesliga show. Do make sure you check us out on social media as well. That's where we put all our shows, all our promotions on there. We're on all of it, X, Insta, the rest, as are Bulinews. So make sure you check them out. Like I mentioned, we did a VFB match reaction live show last evening with Travis, so go have a look at that if you're wanting to get our thoughts on that game. We did predictions as well, myself and Mark, last evening, so there's that to check out. Make sure you check out our vlogs as well, which have been coming out in the last couple of days. Please do check out Mark and Peter's latest excursions. We'll be back on Monday to review match week 10, and then that'll be us for the international break most likely. So have a great weekend. Thank you, Rune Gjerulff. Thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Cheers all.
Bye.